Imagine betting $5.5 billion on a single card. Not a card in a deck, a card in the skyline. 3 towers of steel, concrete, and engineered audacity balanced under a single rooftop that juts 66.5 meters into the Singapore sky, cantilevered over nothing but thin air and sheer irrational confidence. That card was Marina Bay Sands. And the player who placed the bet wasn't a reckless billionaire. It was an entire nation-state governed by men who had built their reputation on the principle that they never gambled. And then, in the span of a single year, that bet almost destroyed everything they had built. This is the story of how Singapore, one of the most disciplined, data-driven, economically precise governments on the planet, made the greatest gamble in its modern history, watched it transform their entire identity, and then nearly lost it all in an economic collapse so total, so catastrophic, it erased decades of momentum in just 12 months. To understand what happened, you have to go back to the moment Singapore broke its own rules. For decades, under Lee Kuan Yew, the country enforced one of the strictest anti-gambling stances in Asia. Casinos weren't just discouraged, they were politically unthinkable. When asked about legalizing gambling, Lee famously rejected the idea outright. That stance became national doctrine. While Macau rose on a foundation of casinos and neon, Singapore built its image on discipline, order, and control. Then in 2005, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong did something extraordinary. He reversed course. Not partially, completely. Singapore would build not 1, but 2 casinos. Except they wouldn't be called casinos. They would be integrated resorts, a carefully engineered term designed to soften the reality of what they were. The winning vision came from Las Vegas Sands, led by Sheldon Adelson. The architectural execution was handed to Moshe Safdie, who was tasked with making the casino feel invisible, wrapped in culture, luxury, and spectacle. What he built changed everything. When Marina Bay Sands opened in 2010, it wasn't just a building, it was a global signal. A skyline-defining structure crowned by a sky park that seemed to float above the city. An infinity pool that became one of the most photographed places in the world. Within months, tourism surged. Visitor numbers jumped. Spending exploded. Singapore had done what it set out to do. Transform itself from a stopover into a destination. The strategy worked, brilliantly. Tourism boomed through the 2010s. Attractions like Gardens by the Bay reinforced the spectacle. Changi Airport became the artery feeding millions of visitors into the system. By 2019, Singapore welcomed over 19 million tourists annually. Then everything stopped. The arrival of COVID-19 didn't just slow tourism, it erased it. Borders closed. Flights vanished. The entire model, built on movement, connectivity, and global flows, collapsed almost overnight. Visitor numbers fell by more than 85% in a single year. Marina Bay Sands, once one of the most profitable pieces of real estate in Asia, saw revenues collapse by over 97% at one point. It exposed something uncomfortable. Singapore's tourism engine wasn't just powerful, it was fragile. When the world stopped moving, Singapore stopped earning. The recovery, when it came, looked impressive on the surface. Tourism spending rebounded strongly. High-end travelers returned with intensity. By 2024 and 2025, revenue numbers were breaking records again. But look closer, and the picture shifts. Visitor numbers still lag behind pre-pandemic peaks. Growth is no longer about more tourists, it's about richer ones. Singapore has deliberately pivoted to a high-value, low-volume model, fewer people, more spending. That works, until it doesn't. Because that strategy has a ceiling. And signs of that ceiling are already appearing. Casino revenues have shown volatility. High roller activity, once the backbone of profitability, is increasingly sensitive to global economic conditions and competition. And that competition is rising fast. Countries across Asia are now building their own versions of the integrated resort model. Thailand is exploring legalized casino complexes. Japan is constructing a massive resort in Osaka. Regional rivals like Malaysia and Vietnam are rapidly scaling their tourism sectors. The landscape Singapore once dominated is no longer the same. Even internally, questions are emerging. How sustainable is a model built on ultra-luxury? What happens when the pursuit of high-value tourists begins to reshape the identity of the city itself? There's a visible tension now between the Singapore built for its citizens and the Singapore designed for global wealth. Marina Bay Sands represents both sides of that equation. It is a masterpiece of ambition, and a symbol of dependence. Now, the stakes are rising again. Las Vegas Sands is investing billions more into expanding the resort. It's another massive bet that Asia's luxury tourism market will keep growing, that high-net-worth travelers will continue to flow, and that Singapore will remain one of their top destinations. But those assumptions rest on uncertain ground. Geopolitics, economic cycles, regional competition, and shifting travel behavior. The truth is, Singapore didn't just build a resort. It built a model. A model that is elegant, profitable, and globally admired, but also exposed. The pandemic didn't break it. It revealed it. So the real question isn't whether Singapore will succeed. It probably will. The question is whether the system it has built, this high-stakes, high-reward, luxury-first tourism machine, is resilient enough for whatever comes next. Because something always comes next. And just like any great gamble, the outcome isn't decided when the bet is placed. It's decided when the cards are finally turned.